So I decided to do a quick review of this. It's the Khadi Papers sketchbook. It actually does tell you on the back, Khadi Papers. Like I said, this is paper that is done in India, and they take cotton t-shirts and things like that, and they make paper out of it. So what I find is I found this interesting because I found the idea of this in another art channel, and it just seemed like it was interesting paper, and so it really kind of is. So this is the rough paper, so it's not so it's kind of got like a rough little pattern. Now I have been exploring with the sort of rough watercolor paper. Like I've done the Arches rough watercolor paper where I've done artwork on that. This is really kind of different from that. Like they say that this paper is 320 GSMs, so that's basically like about 140-pound paper, but it doesn't really seem that way. But that's not really a problem for me because, like I said, this was for, or like I said in the previous video, I should say, this was more for me to explore world building ideas that I had for my fantasy series. And so it is what I've been using it for. But what I do like about this paper is that I was able to use both sides of it. That's not always possible because I have a sketchbook from Mossery, and where I've tried to do artwork on both sides, and unfortunately there's been bleed through. This has not actually bled through, so I did, as you can see, a pretty extensive piece on this one side here, and then I did another piece, and I tried to be like use like less color, but I'm one of those that after a while you kind of end up using more color than you might think that you're using, just because you're trying to get a certain look. But, as you can see, there was no real bleed through onto the other side. So that really, impressed me as far as a kind of like watercolor sketchbook just to kind of like play around with ideas, you know, as far as that's concerned. So yeah, Khadi paper, I really kind of like the feel of it. I like the way that it works. It's rough paper, so it doesn't really take well to it doesn't really take well to certain pens. So what I have, yeah. So it doesn't take well to certain pens. So this is, of course, is my Japanese nib, so my G pen. So it doesn't really take the best to this pen. And I don't know if I no, I think I did try because I do have this lovely fountain pen. So, and it did okay with the fountain pen. I don't think it did great with. I'm not gonna try it on the paper here because, like I said, this is, I don't really kind of want to waste pages when I'm trying to do images for this story. But, you know, you do have to be, if you're gonna use pen and ink, you kind of have to be concerned about the kind of pen and ink that you use. So yeah, the G pen really did kind of struggle. The fountain pen did struggle. If I remember correctly, it did struggle. Sorry, I had to put the pens away. But I could be misremembering. I don't know that I actually used. No, maybe I did use this, but because I'm sorry, I'm trying to think because I think the thing was is I have Sailor ink and it's the blue black ink. Um, as you can see, it's the blue black ink here. So I think this was made with the fountain pen. So I do think the fountain pen does a really good job on it. But I did do one piece with the G nib and a thin fountain pen ink, and as you can see, it really kind of like did all this bleeding, and it didn't really do a great job. Now the reality is this is for my eyes only, so it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world for me, because it's going to be covered up with watercolor. But I think with whatever you're doing, you have to think about the kind of pens and things like that that you're going to use, or the kind of ink that you're going to use. I think a thicker ink kind of works well with the roughness of this paper, but that's where exploration kind of comes in. Anyway, that is my review of the Khadi Papers sketchbook. Like I said, I really am enjoying this sketchbook. It takes water and color pretty nicely. You do have to give it a lot of time to dry, so you can't just like pile on water, but as a kind of like exploratory option, it actually does a really good job. So, yeah, that's that review. See ya.